Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Welcome everybody from around the world. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem, and this is the BAK Show, where we're going to be discussing the things which are important to you. I, of course, am your host, Bilal Abdul Kareem, and we are broadcasting live on X and also on YouTube. Today, we're going to be discussing some of the issues which inshallah ta'ala are important to you. Please do feel free to send in your questions, your comments, and or concerns. And we are discussing issues which pertain to the Muslim Ummah at large, specifically, but not limited to, the Gaza ceasefire and the Syrian President Ahmed Shara's trip to Russia. We're going to be discussing that to see maybe what your thoughts are. I'll give you some of my ideas, and then we'll see, what's going to happen, in the future. Okay, everybody. The first issue that we're going to be discussing is the Gaza ceasefire. Brothers and sisters, I don't want anybody to be fooled or misled. The Gaza ceasefire was never a real thing. Okay. A lot of people are saying, okay, well, now that the U.S. president is involved, that his reputation is on the line, and so on and so forth. The reality of the situation is that Donald Trump's reputation, when it comes to reigning in the Israelis, has already been trampled. It's already been that way. For example, the destruction of the ceasefire agreement when he assumed office back in late January. He wasn't able to rein in the Israelis at that time. There's been a genocide which has been taking place. There have been multiple UN resolutions which have been vetoed by the United States by the order of President Donald Trump. So it's not like he didn't really know what was going on, and now he got the information, and now he's going to stay engaged, and then there's going to be some discussions and so on and so forth. That's not what this is all about. He knew, he financed, armed by sending the tune of billions of dollars on his watch. We're not even talking about the watch of the president before him, which was Joe Biden, but billions of dollars in arms, political cover in the United Nations, where every country in the world, except for maybe one other, I forget, some small country or something like that, all voted in favor of a ceasefire except the Americans and that small country, whom I don't even remember which one it was. And then at the end of the day, now people want to say, "Hey, Donald Trump is a peacemaker. He wants peace." Do you see? Okay, just checking this thing out here. All right, and he wants peace. This is not the case. So then somebody might be sitting there saying, "Well, what's the point, Bilal? Why would people all go through? Why would he go through all of this to only to double cross in the end?" Well, the first thing is that we have to understand that Netanyahu's supervisors and Donald Trump's supervisors are all one and the same people. These are people that are not elected officials that you are never going to know about. That's the first thing. And the second thing, Israel's main thing is that they wanted to get the hostages home so that they could resume the war. All of their officials spoke about it. Even if there were polls that were taken from Israeli society wherein people did not support the war because of the hostages, not because the war wasn't the right thing to do. Okay, after having said that, they needed to concoct a scheme so that they could get the hostages and they could resume the war. Well, the first thing that they did was, okay, for the hostages within 72 hours, the living ones had to be sent back. That was agreed upon. And the ones who had passed away, that was agreed upon too, but it also had a caveat in that they needed time to be able to locate them. That's the first thing that was allowed. That was the first open door. The first open door is, okay, time. What does that mean, time? You've had 6 hours. What are we doing here? Okay. In addition to that, the Israelis didn't agree, nor did Hamas agree with the Israelis that they would disarm. That was supposed to be held at a future time. The Hamas never agreed to disarm. They said that it would be connected to disarm to who? Because the weapons belong to the Palestinian people and they're not our personal property. To give to another governing body of Palestinian technocrats or what have you, we would gladly give the weapons over to them. So there was never a thing where they decided, okay, we're going to lay down our arms, put our hands behind our heads, and we're going to um, uh, 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 just turn ourselves over to the Israelis. That never happened. That was never agreed upon. So it's very important, brothers and sisters, that we understand what's taking place here. If you notice, there have been like 43 Palestinians killed since the ceasefire announcement. Shelling continues. Benjamin Netanyahu has closed the Rafah border and all. Now, what have you heard from Washington? Not a peep in that regard. Zero, nothing, nada. They haven't even mentioned these violations, these clear violations. Even if they want to say, well, Hamas is violating too. Okay, then say, well, Hamas is violating. But also, we've got all these bombings that are taking place, and these are violations also. You don't hear that. That's telling, brothers and sisters, that this was a ruse from the start, that it never was designed in order to for there to be an actual ceasefire and real negotiations. The Israelis haven't negotiated in good faith at all. Why? Because they're the only country in the world who has not declared their borders. Because if you get an agreement and you say, okay, our borders are from this coordinate to that coordinate, that means it's static, it's fixed. You can't all of a sudden extend it. But when you don't declare what your borders are, then you can always expand it at any future date. That's why all of these negotiations never go anywhere. They always move the goalposts. They always come and say, let's just start the negotiations without any preconceived conditions, as if they're like excited to get to the negotiating table, because they realize as long as they continue to build settlements, then that becomes territory that's not on the negotiating table. Because if the settlements are there, we're not going to negotiate that. We can negotiate what's left. And that's how this thing has been going on for the past X amount of years. And this president, Donald Trump, is right alongside them. He's aided them, abetted them, and armed them for this genocide, and been the only country in the world who speaks in opposite tones against the rest of the world to stop the carnage. Do you think that all of a sudden Donald Trump woke up one day and was like, wow, I just had a revelation. Oh, this is not the right thing to do? I don't think so. In addition, the attacks that took place in Qatar, yeah, he says, well, I didn't really know about it in time and stuff like that, because he can't say I didn't know about it, because that would make him look like a fool in front of the in front of the people. So he says, I didn't know about it in time. Come on, man. You telling me that those guys, the Israelis, took a 2 hour and change flight from Israeli territory to Qatari territory and pulled off that attack, and you ain't know nothing about it? What is this? What are we doing? Drugs? Is that what this is about? Allah knows best. Okay, next topic. We want to very briefly, we want to talk about, okay, we've got some requests here. Okay. We want to very briefly talk about Ahmed Shara. He visited Russia, and he went there just a few days ago. And in my opinion, it was quite a shame. And I'm going to tell you why it was a shame. It was a shame because they agreed to uphold the contracts or understandings of the previous regime of Bashar al-Assad. Now, why is that a musiba, a, I'm kind of forgetting my English here, a catastrophe? It's a catastrophe because all of the debts that are due to Russia by the ex-regime, that means that the new regime, i.e. the Syrian people, they have to pay. Wait a minute now, let me make sure that I understand this. Bashar al-Assad's regime was on the ropes, getting ready to collapse. 70% of the country was outside the control of Damascus. Then the Russians come in, smash the country, kill hundreds of thousands of people, and they're charging Bashar al-Assad that he's got to pay so much money for all the weapons and the military force that they're giving him. And Bashar al-Assad, being helpless, says, okay, I'll pay. But now when Bashar al-Assad gets run out, Ahmed al-Shara shows up, and he's the new kingpin, and he acknowledges these debts on the Syrian people. I don't understand the logic behind that. I really don't. And it's not clear to me. Now, some people will say, oh, well, Bilal, there are probably other considerations. But here's one of the issues that I see that we face. When Ahmed al-Shara took over back in December, he said that his government was a temporary government. And the issue comes in is when temporary leaders are making these semi-permanent decisions for the Syrian people. Now, bear in mind, even Ahmed al-Shara, he was not elected by the Syrian people. The Syrian people did not choose him. He chose himself to be the president. All right, fair enough. Well, maybe not fair enough, but the point is that being that he chose himself, he's making all of these deals to acknowledge, I don't know how much they have, Syria from the Assad era has to pay back Russia, but all of a sudden now, Syrians have to pay it back. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, okay, well, he just did it just because him and Putin are cool. No, I'm sure that there are some considerations that are there. Perhaps the purchase of wheat from them at a reasonable price, as bread is the staple food here in Syria. But the point of the matter is that in the absence of a real law-making body, I'm talking about a people's assembly that wasn't handpicked by him, then there's no discussion about it. There's no representatives of the people, I'm talking about representatives of the people whom the people chose to discuss. Do we agree to pay a higher price for bread, but we're not going to take on a $2, $3, $4, $5, or $10 billion debt that we have to pay, not including the interest? Because don't think that there's no interest involved. You think that Vladimir Putin is interested in the Islamic ruling on riba? I don't think so. You think that Syrian former President Bashar al-Assad was adherent to the rules of Islam concerning riba? I don't think so. So the people would end up paying millions of dollars every year just on interest payments alone, and you didn't even pay back the debt. So it would be somewhat different if the People's Assembly were chosen by the people, but it was chosen directly in some respects, but indirectly in other respects by the president himself. So there isn't even a discussion about it. There's no discussion. That's just how it is. Everybody just has to get along with it. So these are some of the points that I wanted to put forward to you, brothers and sisters, and all. Let's take a look and see what we've got here. Now, we've got Shehana, who is on X. Let's see what they have to say. I'm not sure if they're there. Um, let's see if we can get them on. Um, Shehana, are you there?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Bilal.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm really glad to see you opening this space, actually. I've been following you for a long time, but because Twitter keeps deleting our accounts, mine is appearing new, but I've been in Twitter for about 3 years. I'm Gazan from Gaza.
Wow.
A medical student who's studying abroad, but my entire family is inside of Gaza.
Right. May Allah make it easy for them and you. Ameen.
Ameen, and all the Muslim Ummah. I just wanted to interact with you on the topics that you just discussed, especially regarding the so-called ceasefire. Well, actually, it wasn't called a ceasefire. It was promoted by the Arab and Islamic nations under, of course, under the orders of, I like to call him the Orange Man, Trump, as like a halt of the war or whatever. The thing is that Hamas did not break the conditions at all. And there was actually an announcement by the Qassam brigades about like an hour ago, because the Israelis, of course, were propagating the propaganda that Hamas was in Rafah chasing down the traitor Abu Shabab, and they came across an Israeli Merkava and they bombed it and killed two soldiers or whatever. But that is not the truth. I will put the announcement that they announced in your comments, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, because they are publishing it in Arabic, so maybe the English spectrum of Twitter doesn't catch up as
quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to read?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing this up. The reality of the situation, as I think that most of us see it, is that the Israelis want Gaza. America wants to give it to them, period. And it just becomes semantics after that. How are we going to do it? How's the most user-friendly way? Got to get these hostages back. After that, let freedom...
Yes, but see, the problem is, Brother Bilal, the issue from the beginning, we know America is the sponsor of Israel. We all understand that. And the issue is not particularly that. The issue is in the Arabic/Islamic countries that orchestrated what America wanted.
Right.
Because because it was under Turkey's, Qatar, and Egypt's, play, let's say, that all of this happened.
Right.
And the amount of, and it wasn't just political, it was also through the media and the so-called journalists and, intellectuals or whatever, because the first graph that was presented to Hamas was actually a trap.
No.
They just announced it through Al Jazeera, right? Mm-hmm. Who they like to propagate that is actually representative of the Palestinian people, which is not the truth at all. Hamas itself wasn't even shown the paper, right?
Right.
And they said, this is Trump's plan, and you should agree on it, etc. Hamas found itself blindsided and started putting announcements saying that they were not presented this paper.
Right.
And they don't actually know what's in it. That's the first time. And then the so-called intellectuals who were currently residing in Al-Doha started promoting it and,
right.
and using, excuses like, they did their best, you did your best, but khalas, let's stop the bloodshed and let's agree on to this and whatever. And it was a collective effort of, people on Twitter and on social media that were like, this is nonsense. This paper is a declaration of everything that Netanyahu wants.
Right.
And then after this huge backlash from the entire Muslim Ummah, they were like, oh, sorry, Trump, the orange man, blindsided us, and this is not the paper that was presented to us in the first place.
Sis, let me just jump in here very briefly. Look, I think the first thing that we just got to put this out there, okay? I think that it's prudent for everybody to understand something. Unfortunately, the Palestinians are on their own, okay? The Ummah, that includes the leaders, they did not stand with the Palestinian people. They didn't, okay?
That's not the issue. The issue is that they stood 100% with the Israelis. Not one single Arab/Muslim country cut its ties with Israel. Not even the economic ones.
The Saudis didn't close their airspace. The Gulf countries didn't even threaten to pull back the trillions of dollars in investments which were promised in Qatar, nor did
Turkey stop its trading with Israel. No. They reopened the consulate and welcomed back the delegation.
Sis, we've got to get ready to move on to the next topic. But I want to tell you something. I want to tell you to please feel free, when you see us online, to come on and give us whatever updates that you might have on your family. We ask Allah to make it easy for them. Ameen. And I also ask Allah that He raises up the best defenders of Islam from Bilad al-Sham. Jazakallah khair, sis. Okay.
But also to come, because as Palestinians, I am going to talk on a personal point. I feel, and I see it as an overall thing, that we are put in this box where we have to just be the victim and talk about our pains, but not share our political opinions, how we see the actuality of the situation, and that we are more than just our killing and our body parts.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, because we're not even seeing a thing where news outlets are carrying the statements that are being made from the Palestinians about the ceasefire violations and such like that. Sis, Jazakallah khair, I really appreciate it, and I'd love to hear from you anytime. Over here on YouTube, we've got a question here. What's the truth about the American operation? Let's get this here. What's the truth about the American operation yesterday in Damascus province? Some say he wasn't an IS member. There was one man who was abducted by coalition forces, and approximately 45 kilometers outside of Damascus. And this person was alleged to have worked with the security forces of Jolani's government. Now, he was allegedly abducted by coalition forces, taken to a Tenef military base that's here in Syria, and Jordanian officials were a part of it. It is said that he was a part of ISIS and he was a really bad guy. Okay, let's talk about the realities. Number one, what are the Americans doing operations inside of Syria? That's the biggest problem. Because when they come to do kill operations. They come to do things to Muslims. Now, some people may not like this, but I'm going to just give it to you straight. The scholars of Islam have not put ISIS members outside of Islam. They are on takfir. They are not, their belief system is not consistent with Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They are out there, as you would say, belief-wise. Now, after having said that, that doesn't mean that these people are not Muslims. And that doesn't mean they need to be corrected. They need to be reined in. But to say that they're not Muslims is just not correct. Why doesn't Ahmed Shara go and pull off an operation to arrest him, put him on trial, and then mete out his punishment? Why are we not seeing any of that? Why are we seeing people who are being arrested, who are suspected ISIS members? They just disappear into the prison system. They get tortured, and you basically don't really hear much about them. They're gone for a couple of years or whatever the case is. Maybe they come out, maybe they don't. Maybe they get executed. Their family ends up getting a death certificate notice saying, "Oh well, you know, your husband was executed. Didn't you know? It's time for you to start your iddah period. Oh, it happened several months ago." No, man, this is not what justice is all about. This is not what this revolution is all about. As for this man that was abducted, some say he was from ISIS, some say he wasn't. I say I don't care. At this juncture, I don't care. You put this man in prison, you put him in front of a judge, you try him. That's what's important to me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this guy is innocent. I don't know that cat. I don't know what he does from day to day. I don't know what anybody really does from one day to the next. But I can say this, that I thought this revolution was all about justice and that we were pissed off at Bashar al-Assad because he was just arresting people, putting them in prison, and not giving them a chance to defend themselves. I thought that's what this whole thing was all about. But now I'm starting to find out, well, maybe it wasn't about that. Maybe it's about something else. And I want to see some real justice up in here. And I'm talking about, we want to start to see some trials and some people being tried. And I'm not going to stop talking until we start to see some of that. And Allah knows best. Okay. Okay, now we've got a question here who says, Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Bilal, why would you go in the gray zone? They're horrible Exodus. Okay, the first thing is, and it's a good question. Now, why would I go on the gray zone, which is an interview that I did with Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal is an Exodus. He supports Assad and apparently likes him very much. And why would I go on a show like that? Well, that's the equivalent of saying to a da'i who gives classes in the masjid, why would you go downtown when there are a lot of Christians down there and you know, they might ridicule you? The reality is that Islam will stay in the masjid. The reality is that what happens here in Syria and the realities behind it will largely stay confined to a fixed amount of people. Like, for example, if I go online and I tell people, these are people who are familiar with me, who know some of my ideas and such like that. But I think that it has to expand. We want Islam, and we need to tell people why we want Islam, and we need to tell people what Islam really is and what it isn't. And as long as we're going to shy away from platforms that, quote unquote, may not be friendly to us, I will tell you the truth. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention in the Quran, that when the truth comes, the falsehood goes away, and the falsehood always goes away. So I am not concerned about doing interviews that may be, quote unquote, unfriendly, in unfriendly territory. Why? Brothers and sisters, I done been here for 13 years. I'm going to come out and tell you that in the English-speaking language, and maybe even Arabic, nobody knows the Syrian conflict in the last 13 years better than me, and Allah knows best. I'll say this again. Nobody out there knows the Syrian conflict who speaks in the English language and goes out there and will have a chance to convey it better than me. So I'm saying that if people want to challenge the narratives that I bring, I'm more than happy to give them an opportunity to do so. But if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get embarrassed, which is just what happened to Max Blumenthal, in my opinion, when I asked him a straight up question. I said, Bashar al-Assad, is he a good guy or a bad guy? He said, after he hesitated, he said, it doesn't matter. And I told him it does matter. How does it not matter? It might not matter to him who lives in America, which is what, 3,000 kilometers away. But to 26 million people here in Syria, it does matter. They do think that it counts for something. So, um, uh, uh, so I'm open to go on platforms with people who don't share my sane views, because I know that the truth, I know where the truth lies, and I'm going to stay on that side because I'm not bought off by special interest groups. You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting a big paycheck or whatever. You know, if you see the car that I drive and stuff like that and everything, you say, okay, well, yeah, this is the guy we listen to because he sure ain't getting no kickback checks, driving no car like that. So that's the reality, and Allah knows best. Um, all righty. All right. Now it says here. Okay, let's see what we've got here. It is said that Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, UAE, and Indonesia will send troops to the ISF, um, International Stabilization Forces in Gaza. Will they be able to stop Israel's attacks on Gaza? I don't think that that is even going to be the initial issue. The initial issue is that any troops that come into Gazan territory without the Gazans' permission will be looked at as occupiers, and they will be under attack. You have to understand that. They will be looked at as occupiers. They will not be looked at as a welcome force. Hey guys, glad to have you. No, they will be looked at as doing the bidding of international forces, i.e., Israel, and there will be an insurgency against them. That alone is enough of a deterrent. Let me tell you something. I lived in the United Arab Emirates. Them guys ain't no fighters. I'm gonna just give it to you straight. They not no fighters. They will rely on the Egyptians and the Turks to do some of the heavy lifting. But Erdogan is not a dumb guy. He's not. You might not agree with him, but he ain't no sideshow. He's not a dummy. He can see right through this. And he's not going to put Turkish troops in hostile territory for the pleasure of Benjamin Netanyahu. And Allah knows best. I'd be totally shocked if he did something like that. And I don't see him doing that. As for Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, I think this guy will do anything if you put some loot on the table and you just make sure that the bombs don't start landing on his palace. So at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, I don't believe that is real or it's going to happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We'll have to see what's going to happen in the future. All righty. All right, let's take one more. Do you know who and how are going to be chosen for the technocrat government in Gaza? No, I don't think that was even agreed on. But brothers and sisters, let me give it to you straight. This whole thing is designed so that Trump, Blair, and the enemies of the people of Gaza are choosing the leaders. That's what this is about. They want to be able to say, okay, a technocrat government, this is a technocrat, yeah, you can do it and everything. What have you been saying about Israel? Let's look into your background. Okay, okay, you can be a part of this also. And they would be chosen by them. Do they really think that the Palestinian people are going to accept that? They know that they're not. But then again, the peace plan is not designed to be accepted. It's not designed for that. It's put forward with a bunch of wild and crazy, outlandish stuff that they know will never come to pass. They get the hostages back, then they can resume the fighting and they can try to take the place militarily. But Allah is the best of planners, brothers and sisters. And I will tell you, Don't be dismayed because the world abandoned our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Don't be dismayed. On the real to real, this is the real deal. These are people who worship Allah. Allah will not abandon them. So we will see what will happen in the future. But the reality of the situation is that I don't believe that these countries are going to be fool enough. Well, I've been wrong before. I don't think that they'll be fool enough to get on board with some international coalition stabilization whoop-de-doo, because the Palestinian people are not going to go for it. They know how to fight, and I just don't see if Erdogan did something like that, the Turkish people would he would never be reelected to any office again, and I think that he knows that. Okay, brothers and sisters, I got to roll. I'm sorry. I'd love to continue. We need to do these things longer and all. But look, I want to thank you guys for being on. We want to thank Shahana, who helped us to understand some of these realities and all. And we ask Allah to make it easy for her and her family. We're going to keep figuring out ways to bring you more news, more information, more analysis. I am your host, Bilal Abdul Kareem. Jazakum Allahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.